And see, my friend Zoya knows she's controlled our position because she sent weapons to Israel, dipshits. She voted for Donald Trump, who enabled all these wars. At RBN, we are begging people to stop falling for the political theater. So I'm saying this because it's very important to say Marjorie Taylor Greene is allowed to say this because she is the heel. And her job is to tie everyone else who has correct positions to the back. So people like Bernie Sanders say, oh, I support Ukraine aid. What do you? You support Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. That's why she's allowed to say this kind of stuff. She's a useful idiot in the establishment. Marjorie Taylor Greene, just like Bernie Sanders and AOC, and some people may get mad at me for saying this. I don't care. She plays a very particular role for the establishment. Like, whenever people say, like, oh my God, I can't believe Marjorie Taylor Greene is speaking out against Israel. And I'm like, that's the least surprising thing. Like, you guys realize that they gave Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's like in a deep Georgia district. Her seat is safe. Like, she plays a very important role for the establishment. She's the conspiracy theorist. She said all this crazy batshit. Like, she like Alex Jones. She says 1,000 bad things, and then she's allowed to speak up against the war in Ukraine. She's allowed to call out Israel as a nuclear state. The establishment don't mind that because the establishment can then turn and say, oh, look at you. You're aligning with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Don't you know that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a conspiracy theorist? And Marjorie Taylor Greene, she knows her role. She knows she's the heel. And see, my friend Zoya knows she's controlled our position because she sent weapons to Israel, dipshits. She voted for Donald Trump, who enabled all these wars. At RBN, we are begging people to stop falling for the political theater. So I'm saying this because it's very important to say Marjorie Taylor Greene is allowed to say this because she is the heel. And her job is to tie everyone else who has correct positions to the back. So people like Bernie Sanders say, oh, I support Ukraine aid. What do you? You support Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. That's why she's allowed to say this kind of stuff. She's a useful idiot in the establishment. But here's Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking about her bill, and you will never guess, I bet you will, who votes against.
Mr. Speaker, as the House considers the defense appropriation bill today that costs the American people $831 billion, it's important to talk about that this is the funding for our great men and women serving in our military and our nation's defense. The Department of Defense's mission statement is to deter war and ensure our nation's security, and that is worthy of the American people's hard-earned tax dollars. However, the American people are $37 trillion in debt. So this is money that is being spent that they already don't have. My amendment would strike $500 million in funding for nuclear-armed Israel's missile defense system. And it's important to phrase it that way. Israel is a nuclear-armed nation, which is very capable of defending themselves, and they have been proving that so as we've watched on the world stage. The U.S. already provides Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid. $3.8 billion, that's a lot of money. Additionally, the April 2024 security supplemental included $8.7 billion for Israel, that is nuclear-armed Israel. And during the recent 12-day war, the U.S. used 15 to 20% of our terminal high-altitude area defense missiles stockpiles defending nuclear-armed Israel, which cost us over $800 million. The $500 million provided in this bill will fund Israel's, that is nuclear-armed Israel's, missile defense system, the Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow system. Yet Israel is a nuclear-armed nation. That's a pretty big deterrent for any of their enemies. Any nation that has a nuclear bomb has the greatest threat against their enemies. U.S. aid typically accounts for 15 to 20% of Israel's defense budget, even though Israel, nuclear-armed Israel, has universal health care for their citizens and subsidized college for their citizens. They're able to provide.
For all the MAGA Zionists, and I guess this applies to all the Democrats too, why is it crazy communism? Why is it socialism when we advocate for free healthcare, but it's okay to send the United States taxpayer money to fund healthcare for Israelis? They will never explain it. Doesn't make any sense. But this is Marjorie Taylor Greene given permission from the establishment to speak out against the Iron Dome and the United States sending Israel money, and they allow Marjorie Taylor Greene to do this so they can malign people like Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar for voting for this. Because now they can say Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, anti-Semites join the right-wing anti-Semites to vote against Israel's right to defend itself. And you want to know who also made that same political calculation? You want to know who was like, oh, I can't be seen voting for this right bill, this right legislation to strip funding for Israel? Because I told you guys, I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene is an op for the establishment. I know that the ruling class is playing us by having Marjorie Taylor Greene be the person who delivered this message. But that doesn't change shit. Like, just because I know this doesn't mean you vote against the undeniably good bill. Just because we know Marjorie Taylor Greene is full of shit on this issue, it doesn't mean we don't use this to our advantage to achieve our goals. And I guess that's exactly what AOC is doing. Someone who enables Zionism, someone who is a liberal Zionist, someone who believes in the existence and actively perpetuates that. That's how I define a Zionist. Someone who supports the existence and through their actions or through their politics perpetuate the existence of Israel. That's why people are like, why are you calling people in Syria Muslim Zionists, all these people in the Middle East? Because politically they enable, not only, like, you can even say you don't support the state of Israel, but if you politically enable it, I don't give a fuck. That's the most important thing. That's why we say Jerome Mamdani is a liberal Zionist, even though I wouldn't say he's even that bad on the issue. But he's a liberal Zionist because he wants to defend Israel's right to defend itself politically. He condemned calls against Intifada, which essentially means struggle. Which is why that's extremely damning. And I meant to say this at the time, but I go back to it. For you, I guess we gotta get to it. I'm going a little bit too hard on Mamdani too early. I'm gonna get back to it because, like, him condemning globalized Intifada irks the shit out of me. But I'm getting a little bit too ahead of myself. Let's focus here. And AOC voted against Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she voted against cutting funding for the Iron Dome in a time where Israel is committing a genocide. And this is not the first time that AOC did this. Remember when she cried when Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi made her cry when she voted for the Iron Dome the last time? Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to call off offensive aid to Israel, nor end the flow to U.S. munitions being used in Gaza. And this is why we called out Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is why it's beautiful to be post-duopoly, because we can call out the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though she's posturing against the Iron Dome vote that she knows is not going to pass, she still voted to arm Israel. I remember she was saying stuff like, we need to get rid of Hamas. And she voted for those weapons, so that's the point. But AOC, you're not about to distract us for the fact that just because Marjorie Taylor Greene voted to send weapons to Ukraine, that does not excuse you for voting for funding for the Iron Dome. You guys see how AOC believes her supporters are stupid? Like, I guess it's panic the same way that Trump is panicking over the Epstein thing. Like, you just say shit and you try to misdirect the dumbest of your followers. Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to cut off offensive aid to Israel nor end the flow of U.S. munitions to Gaza. Of course, I voted against it. What does that have to do with anything regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill that defunds the Iron Dome? If you give someone a shield and he uses a sword and shield to slaughter people, the shield is not a defensive weapon. And that's the liberal Zionist manipulation they use on people. They say, oh, well, we support defensive weapons to Israel. Look, what it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities. Look, this is AOC promoting liberal Zionist propaganda. Caitlin Johnstone's analogy, I like to use the sword and shield analogy. But if you provide body armor to a mass shooter and they shoot someone up, the body armor is not a defensive weapon. It is used to help them continue to slaughter. The same way the Iron Dome protects Israel from the resistance, which allows Israel to bomb 6 different countries in 6 weeks. You guys see how AOC and the dumb left, their job is to dumb down the working class. They want a dumb, ineffective, weak, and broken left who don't understand these basic principles. I have long stated that I do not believe that adding to the death count of innocent victims to this war is constructive to its end. That is a simple and clear difference of opinion that has long been established. So AOC believes that we should send money to the Nazis to defend themselves. Can you wrap your mind around how unbelievably stupid that is to say? Can you imagine how absolutely cooked you have to be to say, oh, come on, man. We can't perpetuate more violence. I know World War II is messy, but we don't want to have Nazis be murdered, right? But the last part is extremely damning because this shows why AOC is among the most evil people in Washington. I remain focused on cutting the flow of U.S. munitions that are being used to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza. Do you know how absolutely cooked you have to be to acknowledge that there is a genocide going on and still willing to send aid, military equipment to a country committing a genocide? You have to understand there's plenty of people who are ignorant, who don't know the complexities of Gaza, who's brainwashed by MSNBC and CNN. These people may have voted for a genocide. Joe Biden may have voted for Kamala Harris, but they didn't know. They don't know if there's a genocide. Oh, hell, I'm going to actually raise the bar. I'm going to raise the bar and see if you guys agree with me or not. Let's say you are actively denying that there's a genocide in Gaza. Let's say you're a liberal who is planning on voting for Kamala Harris, and in order to rationalize your vote because you have Trump derangement syndrome, you manage to convince yourself that you're just helping Israel to defend themselves. Isn't it better? Isn't it more morally bankrupt for you to acknowledge that there's a genocide going on and still supporting the people responsible versus the person who legitimately don't believe that there's a genocide going on? Like the person who legitimately don't believe there's a genocide, the person who don't believe that Israel's doing anything wrong, or the person who believes that it's morally great, that, hey, man, there's nothing that we can do about it. You guys realize that AOC position is way worse than that. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense to you guys. For someone to acknowledge that there's a genocide going on and to still to support that state is morally reprehensible. And boy, did the internet let AOC have it. Look at this. This ratio is insane. And AOC is melting down because of it. She accusing everyone of being Nazis for not supporting the defense of Israel. Bro, AOC is having a complete meltdown. We get to see the AOC completely exposed once again, the same way we get to see Trump exposed for being a pedophile. It's truly a glorious time to be post-duopoly.